Thank you all for having me. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you to the board, and then thanks to all of you. It was really inspiring to hear a vision in education. So now the bad news. Now you have to take a test. The good news is this is the easiest test you've ever taken. I'd like to ask you to look at the next slide and count the number of times the letter F appears in this sentence. This is not a trick question. Count the number of times the letter F appears in this sentence. And when you're done, please look at me. Okay, that's enough time. How many people saw all three? Almost all of you. Anybody see 4? Some of you. Anybody see 5? Some of you. Okay, so the real answer is 6. And now that you know the answer, see if you can see the 6 Fs. 5 flies of scientific. There you go. Okay, there's one group that always gets this question right. You know what we call them? Little kids. How many people here feel like your kids or grandkids can see things you can no longer see? Yeah, almost all of us, right? Well, unfortunately, that's another downside of aging on top of everything else. The older we get, the harder it is for us to see what's in front of us. But I'm here to tell you that's great news. You know why? Because that means that the answers to some of the most important problems in the world might actually be hiding in plain sight, right in front of us. All we got to do is call it out. Now, this is actually an evolutionary problem because biologically, we're supposed to live about 22 years. So spending about 13 years being open to the world, 12 years executing was pretty balanced. But today, thanks to technology, we're living to 100. Wouldn't it be nice if we could keep an open mind, be a camera instead of a projector for half our lives? Culture changes so much faster than biology, and that's good news. Now, there's a second lag error in evolution, and here's what I'm here to talk about. It's an inclusive stakeholding. Remember, culture evolves faster than biology. So biologically, we're wired to live among kin tribes. I actually come from one of the oldest farming families in the world. We've been together about 1,000 years. Technically, I'm a 38th generation farmer, even though I run a hedge fund today. What I remember about growing up in a kin tribe of 500 households was we were always nurturing each other. We all had each other's best interests at heart. Mom, dad, cousins, uncles, aunts. The way to think about it is, and this is a biologic term, it's called inclusive fitness. William Hamilton called it Hamilton's rule. We all have stock in our kids, 50% founder stock, you and your husband, you and your spouse. You have 25% interest in your grandkids, cousins, so on. So proportionally, you have founder shares in your entire community, so you live according to where you have genetic interests. Today, we're living in a global world where we don't necessarily have skin in the game in each other's lives. So when you don't have skin in the game, you focus on yourself. Now, that works well in many regards, but it also creates a world where weird things start to happen. Fake news, fake foods, and fake politicians are all catalyzed by the same underlying phenomenon of having no genetic alignment. Now, when this phenomenon is combined with competition, a strange thing happens. When you don't have alignment and you have competition, this is what happens. If you ask one media company to use less clickbait, another one will use more. If you ask one food company to put in less sugar, another company puts in more. So in a way, high fructose corn syrup and the Kardashians are really the same phenomenon. It's the inevitable outcome of a race to the bottom line when malalignment meets competition. Now, this has been going on far longer than you'd think. Remember, kids can see stuff we can't see? So here's a short take on world history from the YouTube generation. 90-second take on how we got to now. And could you play that, please?
Looking back, world history as we know it has been a story of how our family values didn't scale as we globalized. When kingship replaced kinship, sovereigns began ruling over instead of on behalf of the people. Ancient republics created to counter these abuses also collapsed due to self-dealing. As republics and empires everywhere collapsed from corruption, a story of God, who gave his only son to the world, emerged to counter the story of kings who gave the world to their sons. But this story also gave way to the same old story of institutional corruption. Along the way, the idea of a joint stock company was born. This powerful idea aligned stakeholders the way genes once did for kin tribes. But these companies did not include workers or people in distant lands as stakeholders, leading to imperialism, colonialism, and abuses of the Industrial Revolution. Against this backdrop, giving stock to workers was a stunning innovation that made Silicon Valley the entrepreneurial juggernaut that it is today. On the other hand, Silicon Valley did not include users as stakeholders, resulting in yet another round of upheavals today. These examples demonstrate a recurring theme. Unless first-order alignment issues are addressed, whack-a-mole solutions to second-order problems will only create new ones. Ever since we left the kin-skin-in-the-game era of human evolution, there's always been a group of excluded stakeholders paying the price. Pete Townsend anthemized this Sisyphean hell of revolutions. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss.
Okay, to recap, there's been two amazing innovations. There's a biological one called skin in the game, where you have founder stock in your entire community, where leaders are stewards. And then we actually have stockholding, which is the same thing. It's skin in the game where we can organize ourselves. Now, along the way, we're getting better at being inclusive about the stakeholding. We've been drawing larger and larger concentric circles because anytime we exclude a stakeholder, they end up paying the price. Think about like the federal deficit or pension funds. If we don't think about them as a stakeholder, we end up taking from them. This is what happened with imperialism, nativism, nationalism, pollution, environment. If we don't name the environment, we will take from the environment. Future children. So these are all things that are doable. We're almost there. We've named almost all the stakeholders, but there's a few left. So if we assign them a stake, the world will transform. There's three major takeaways here for all of you about how to participate. This is an opportunity for all of you. First, go home tonight and reimagine everything that you've learned so far. Like, think about why did kings marry off kids to each other when they're in a war? It's a way to reestablish skin in the game. Why do we put up signs that say, please drive like your children live here? It's the same thing. When we don't get it right, we end up with nepotism, kings that take and put it in their kid. Unfortunate things happen, things like Varsity Blues scandals. When we misapply that instinct and forget that we're now all together is when those things happen. So these are all things that we can totally do and figure out. Second thing, as you move forward in your leadership roles, think about how you can make your institution and the world a better place through inclusive stakeholding. Let me give some examples. Imagine an insurance company. Today, right now, it's about a one-year contract. That's like a Tinder relationship, right? So you pay and you get a service. But imagine a different world where health insurance companies get paid based on health savings 10 years down the road. So they're essentially a stockholder in your health. They're an investor in your health instead of a trader in your health. Imagine if teachers could get rewarded based on tokens of appreciation on the blockchain on a smart contract 10 years down the road if the student makes a major contribution. Some of that reward accrues to the original teacher. They're an investor in the community. Think about AI. Instead of focusing on function, focus on who does it serve. If they have a vested interest in the user, then they will, like mom, constantly think about, what can I do for you? Imagine the robot of unconditional love instead of function. This is something that I think is totally doable across all of our institutions. In aging, we were producing old people. We're doing a great job, but essentially people get older and sicker, and we need to give them more health care. That's a vicious cycle, right? A different idea is to keep people healthy for a long time, and that way we're not self-expanding the healthcare system. And Victor Zhao, who's president of the National Academy of Medicine, designed these incredible grand challenges. Kind of think about like an X Prize. We're actually working on aging rather than the symptoms of aging, and he got all the stakeholders involved, 49 nations, private citizens, corporations, scientists, public agencies to all work on the same thing. That's inclusive stakeholding. You hear a lot about universal basic income. What if we did universal basic stakeholding? So instead of it feeling like something you take out of the system, you're actually investing in the system, all of us being a stockholder in a greater future. So I want to leave you with the final thought. All of these things are eminently possible because of technology. Remember, first innovation was biologic, second one was stockholding, and now we have the technology to do inclusive stakeholding. Keep thinking about all the stakeholders out there. Inclusion is great, but it's not enough. If you give them a stake, then they all rise. As society rises through universal basic stakeholding, everybody rises together. This is the best way to move forward together in this global village. So instead of a world where history is made by helping others win, imagine a world where history is made, instead of imagining a world where history is written by the victors, imagine a world where history is made by helping others win. We're now seeing a grand challenge on stakeholding, inclusive stakeholding, whereas malalignment with competition is a race to the bottom, it can be. Alignment with competition is a race to the top. If we succeed, our transformative journey from the kin village era to the global village era will be complete. Thank you very much.